I think Islam is significant. It matters in this day and age because of political Islam. Obviously, more than many other things, Islam matters. But as I said, it matters most, I think, because of this movement, a right-wing reactionary political movement. Otherwise, in my opinion, Islam is really no different from other religions. You can find just as much misogyny, inhumanity, cruelty in the Bible and other religious texts, as much as you can find in the Quran. And in my opinion, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and other religions are fundamentally no different from Scientology or Moon's Unification Church, which the German government deems to be, quote, cults endangering social and personal development. I mean, what do they think religion is then? But even so, today, as we speak, there is still a distinction to be made between religion in general and Islam in particular, for no other reason than that it is the ideology behind a movement that is in many places part and parcel of the state, the so-called justice system, the educational system, and the law. I think this point is key for a principled criticism of Islam, and more importantly, a progressive and humane response to the totalitarianism of our era. This means, firstly, that we have a duty to criticize Islam. This goes beyond the mere right to or freedom of expression and speech. Clearly, the German government, in fact, all European governments, the United Nations, the religious nationalist European left, and other apologists for Islam don't think so. Germany's Minister of Interior, for example, is so concerned about Islam's image that he is quoted as saying that media reports on Islam often concentrate on the subject of violence and rarely on the reality of Islam in everyday life. But the reality of Islam in everyday life is far more violent than anything even a minister in a government with close relations with Islamic states and the political Islamic movement could possibly fathom. Entire generations slaughtered over decades and buried in mass graves in Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, long before September 11th. The human cost of Islam in power is enough of a reason, the only necessary reason, to make criticism a task and a duty. After all, it is impossible, let me repeat, impossible, to challenge a political movement that has wreaked havoc primarily for the people of the Middle East and North Africa if you are not allowed to fully and unconditionally and unequivocally criticize its ideology and its banner. Now, I know some will say that the problem is not Islam, but the fundamentalist interpretation of Islam. In my opinion, there is no Islamic feminism, no Islamic reformism, no Islamic human rights, no Islamic democracy, no moderate interpretations of Islam when it is in power. Of course, there are Muslims, or those labeled as such, who have humanist, secularist, atheist, socialist, feminist, and other progressive viewpoints. But that is not one and the same thing, with Islam in power being as such. In my opinion, a moderate or a reformed religion is one that's been pushed back and reined in by an enlightenment, and not before. Criticism of religion has always been an important vehicle for progress and the betterment of humanity's lot. And it is within this context that criticism of Islam finds meaning. The right wing's virulent criticism of Islam and its sudden championing of women's rights in the Middle East, while legislating religious morality and misogyny here at home, self-servingly ignores the main issue at hand, which is religion in power, any religion in power. If we're going to win this battle, as in centuries past, we have to push Islam and religion out of the public sphere, full stop. There cannot be any compromise because too many lives are at stake. And the compromise included liberal attempts at interfaith coalitions thereby increasing the number of religions and beliefs that have access to power in society, or the more reactionary sorts of appeasement, such as that of the German government or the likes of the Tony Blair Faith Foundation. Even calling it faith and avoiding the term religion won't get around the fact that in our age, it is the genocidaire of our age. Either way, misguided or purely out of economic and political interests, these endeavors only serve to increase, justify, and consolidate the role of religion in society and are part of the problem rather than the solution. The fundamental problem being that they are more concerned with religion, either apologizing for it or showing how much better, quote, their own religion is vis-a-vis a barbaric Islam, than with real live human beings. In my opinion, you have to choose. You must either defend the human being or you must defend Islam and religion. You cannot do both because they are incompatible with each other. Of course, this doesn't mean that people don't have a right to religion or atheism. Of course they do, but as a private matter. Labeling people as Muslims, millions of them, and collaborating with Islamic organizations and states as the German government is doing, including at these Islamic conferences, only helps to hand over millions of often resisting people to the political Islamic movement. This, despite the fact that by the government's own admission, the Islamic organizations at the annual conferences represent at best 10 to 15% of those it has deemed to be Muslims. This type of politics ignores the distinction between the oppressed and the oppressor and actually sees them as one and the same. It ignores the important distinction between those who are Muslims or labeled as such and Islam and the political Islamic movement. It's a politics that implies that a vast majority of people choose to live the way they are forced to, that they actually deserve no better because it is, quote, their own culture and their own religion, imputing on innumerable people the most reactionary elements of culture and religion, which is that of the ruling class, parasitical imams, and self-appointed so-called community leaders. And so a criticism of Islam is deemed racism. It is not. And so rights, equality, integration are raised vis-a-vis religion rather than the human being and individual. Since when has people's integration meant an integration of all their so-called beliefs? As I have said, whilst criticism of Islam and political Islam is a historical duty and necessity, it has to be based within a politics that puts people first in order to have real meaning and affect real change. It has to be done for humanity's sake. In the face of this onslaught, secularism, citizenship rights, universalism, a humanity without labels and values worthy of 21st century humanity can only be defended via another transformative enlightenment by this century's avant-gardes. We must give no more concessions to religion and cultural relativism. We must no longer respect and tolerate inhuman ideals, practices, and values. An uncompromising and shamelessly aggressive demand for secularism is only a minimum if we are to ensure that humanity is safeguarded. Today, more than ever, we are in need of the de-religionization of society, a concerted battle against the religion industry, which is above the law, unregulated, and never held accountable for its many fatwas and murders. I'd like to end with a quote from Mansour Hekmat, the late Marxist thinker, who said, "It has been proven time and time again that pushing back religiosity and religious reaction is not possible except through unequivocal defense of human values against religion. It has been proved time and time again that preventing religious barbarism does not come about to bribing it and trying to give it a human face, but through the fight against reactionary religious beliefs and practices. What price should be paid to realize that Islam and religion do not have a progressive, supportable side?" Thank you.